Okay, this is a video concerning the Hirth 3202 fan belt. The fan belt in my Hirth has been experiencing some abnormal wear issues. This is a brand new belt. This is the third belt my Hirth 3202 has had. The engine has 130 hours on. This is the third belt. Now the manual recommends replacing the belt after, I believe, 100 hours. But I'm thinking the belt needs to be replaced after like 50, and I'm going to show you why. These are the first two belts that came off my Hirth engine. Alright, this is the first belt that came off of my Hirth engine. This is at 55 hours. And the first thing I noticed was I saw this fraying. I was able to see that during my pre-flights through the grill on my Hirth engine, at the back of the Hirth engine. You can see that there's wear on one side of the belt, whereas the other belt has no wear. Here's another spot that's really bad. You see a lot of wear on one side, but the other side is nice. Here's a third area on the belt. Again, you can see where it's like being chewed away, eaten away by something inside the engine. See how it's shredded on that one side, whereas this side is fine. So anyway, at 55 hours I replaced the belt. Here's the next belt. This one was on for 75 hours. Now I believe the recommendation is to change the belt every 100 hours. But look at this one. After 75 hours, look at this. Now you think that's bad. This belt was close to breaking. This last belt nearly put me in a field, and you can see why right there. That's how close I was to landing off field in who knows what kind of wilderness from my engine seizing from overheating. So this is after 75 hours of time on this belt. 130 hours total time on the engine, 75 hours on this belt. Again, you can see wearing on one edge. There's wearing on that edge. This side is pristine. Now I'm going to admit something here. I'm not much of a mechanic, and you'll see why. Is because, again, I have no idea what side of the engine is causing this wear. However, I'm going to dig through my archives and I'm going to look through my pictures and I'm going to see if I can find out. Because I believe it's the aft edge. I believe that that it's the back edge. This is the aft edge. This is towards the front of the plane, the propeller. Now let's go take a look inside the Hirth engine where this belt runs to see if we can find the potential issue. Okay, we're back to my Hirth 3202 engine. Now the first thing that you normally do when you replace the belt is you pull this recoil starter off. Now what I noticed just a few minutes ago, I never noticed this before, but if you look inside the recoil starter, and again, it's right next to where the fan belt is, you can actually see debris, which looks like it very well could have come directly off the belt. Look at that black area. See that black area where with some dust buildup? It's almost like that's where the debris from the belt is being deposited inside my recoil starter. See all that fuzzy stuff? Doesn't that look like belt debris to you? Very well could be. It could be dust just from the outside, but it looks suspiciously fibrous, almost like as if it's belt debris. And that belt debris's got to go somewhere, so why not on the back of the recoil starter plate, right? Now the recoil starter plate itself couldn't be causing the damage because it basically sits flush. The only area that protrudes into the crankcase area at all is the center portion, which goes inside of that pulley. So everything else is sitting flush right here, and it's not getting anywhere inside here. Besides, if there was something rubbing, it would rub on this pulley before it got near the belt, unless there was something inside here touching, but there's not. There's nothing that penetrates inside the case. Everything is out here. So there's not going to be any wear coming from this area anywhere around here, okay? That's what a brand new belt looks like, by the way. That was just installed by me a couple days ago. Has no runtime on it. You can see how nice and pristine it is. Now I suspect the wear is coming on this edge out here. In fact, remembering what I remember, I know it is, because you can actually look through this grill in here and you can see this is how I go through my pre-flight and I check inside right here. And I remember those tufts that you saw, those fibrous thready tufts? Those were on this back side of that belt. And so I know for a fact that's where the wear is coming from. Now up in this fan area, again, there's nothing for it to rub on. There's nothing anywhere in this area. If you look right next to the fan pulley itself, there's nothing on there. There's nothing in the way. And obviously the belt is not jumping off and then coming back on. It's staying on there. So the most logical explanation, since it's not coming from anywhere from this point around or from this point around, because you can clearly see the belt, you can clearly see there's nothing there. It's just in free space right there. But it travels through this opening up here. I'm going to get a flashlight so you can see this better. So here we can see the fan belt going up into basically a slot, like an open slot area on the top and on the bottom. And it's difficult to see, and you definitely can't hardly see the clearances, but there has to be something up in there, right up inside this area up in here in the crankcase. It has to be rubbing up in there somehow. Now let's look at the top end. Okay, here we are at the top end of the engine. I'm going to go inside here, and as you can see, the fan belt, it does have clearance between this ridge and the belt, and there's clearance here on this other side too. So I've got this little feeler gauge that I made out of this wire, and when I hold it against the back edge of the metal and then draw it towards me and go back and forth like that, I can tell, I can feel, let's see if you can see it better. I can feel that there's like a 1/4 inch at least, if not more, in between this metal and the fan belt. And then on this side over here that you can see down in there, that's not the side that is experiencing wear. But even if it was, there again, there's plenty enough clearance in between there. On the other side of the engine here, and you can see that lower belt gap. It has to be rubbing on that. You can see there's the upper portion of the belt, and this is like extremely difficult to see. I don't want to pull this. You'd think I'll just pull the shroud out. I really don't want to mess with pulling that out, because if I break that damn thing, then I've got to, I don't even know if they have spares for them. When this engine runs, of course you've got vibration, so it's not a smooth turning. This turns clockwise in flight, so it turns this way. And this is not smooth, obviously, because it's 2 cycles, so there's going to be some, you know, it's not going to be completely smooth. There's going to be a little bit of vibration, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. Again, I'm not a mechanic. But the only thing I can think of is that because it turns clockwise, that means that this portion of the belt is going to tend to be tighter than this portion up here. Because this is going to be the slack end, because it's turning this way and it's turning this pulley. So it's actually pulling this pulley this way. And this is going to stay tight. Whereas this is going to be the slop end. So possibly where that wear is occurring is at the slop end, at the top, and on the aft edge in there. I ended up pulling this housing, this shroud off. This shroud is actually loose now. I'm going to pull it off here. But in order to do it, I don't recommend doing this because I actually broke one of the tabs on mine, and I knew that was going to happen. But in order, if you really want to get your shroud off, you have to use the small screwdriver like this. And basically what you're doing is you have to lift there's two tabs. There's one at the top and one at the bottom on each fin. And so you have to, from the front, you have to lift up on one with a screwdriver, and with your other hand at the same time go in with a bigger screwdriver in the back. And you can only go in from the back on one side. You can go in from the back on like this side, but not this side because of the way the impeller blades are. Okay, so just to show you with this one, you can only come in up here on the top. See where the screwdriver is? You can hit the top, but you can't get up underneath it without risk damaging your impeller blade. So don't do that. Also, you want to be aware, you can see where I made slight damage to my fan blade right here, and that's simply by putting an object like a screwdriver in here and then putting torque on it this way. So that's why if you pull that shroud off, you got to be really, really careful. Again, I knew this could happen and I was aware of it while I was doing it, and it still happened. I just got one of my blades, but still, you know, it's a minor issue, but that's what happens when you do these invasive type procedures. So now this comes off now, and it only goes on one way. You can't rotate it because it's asymmetrical, but you can see where I broke. This is what I'm talking about. I broke one of these darn tabs. I knew that was going to happen too. So I'm gonna have to break this off completely because I can't let it just be floating there. So now it's only going to be held on by 4 points instead of 5, which I knew was going to happen. So looking in here, you can see the clearance. You can see that it's got plenty of clearance. Okay, and if I grab this and move it over, I have to put some pretty good force on that. I can't even get it to touch that edge right there. Same thing with the other side if I go back in that way. It's got plenty of room. Here's the top one. Same thing. I can push in on it, but there's plenty of room there, so it's not hitting. I can't imagine that it's hitting anything. This is pushing back against it, going towards that rusty area. You know, one thing I'm noticing now is that there's not a whole lot of groove there for that belt to ride in. There's only like maybe a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little bit more of a groove inside this pulley, this top fan pulley. It's feasible that fan belt could be jumping off. And if it jumps off even for a fraction of a second, that's going to be just enough for it to scrape on the inside of one of those edges, or even at this edge up here. But I'm suspecting it's jumping off there and possibly rubbing down here. That's the only thing I can possibly think of. That, or it's loose in flight, but it just doesn't make any sense how that could be so loose. There could be some slack there. I just have no idea. I have no idea what's going on here. I got to figure this out. I already broke one of my little tabs, but you know what? I don't care about this as much as I care about this damn fan belt breaking in flight. This really bugs me that I can't figure out what's going on here. And what do you guys think is going on? My best guess is this belt is actually jumping off the pulley and it's rubbing. That's the only thing I can think of. It's only happening on this side. It's not happening on that side. So if the fan belt's bumping off that pulley coming towards the camera, there is a groove in that pulley, but it's not very deep. And I'm thinking that's the only thing that could possibly be. I don't think it's jumping off down here. I think if it was jumping off down here, it would come completely off. But the fact that there's a lip right here is preventing this fan belt from coming all the way off, because it's essentially rubbing on the inside of this stationary metal of this center piece right here. So that's the only thing I can think of. This situation is completely unsolved at this point. And I'm going to check this thing like probably every 15 hours religiously and see if it starts making that same wear pattern. That's it for now. Hirth 3202. I hope this thing just keeps on trucking, man.